Welcome to Navigating Life After 40, the podcast that's all about helping women navigate this exciting and sometimes challenging phase of life. I'm your host, Roni J, and I'll be here sharing some of my own personal experiences, chatting with experts and a few friends, and also providing some practical advice and support to help you live your best life after 40. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Navigating Life After 40. I am your host, Roni J. And as you guys always know my saying, I hope each of you are doing well. And I genuinely do mean that because I know we are in some very turbulent times. And I hope that each of you are doing well and taking care of yourselves. Can you believe, before we just dive into today, can you believe that this is season This is season 3. I cannot believe we are here. And I am here because each of you who continue to show your support by tuning in, sharing feedback, and being a part of this amazing community of women, I can't help but say thank you so much for every download, every share. Thank you so much. I am truly looking forward to what season 3 has to offer. And I want to share a little bit more about what that is for this season. So the theme for this season is going to be all about redefining your prime. We've hit on some topics in season 1 and season 2, but this season we're going to really kind of focus on redefining your prime. And there are some amazing guests lined up for this season who will take the listeners on a journey to understand how to redefine what it means to be in your prime while also celebrating midlife as a time of growth and potential. What we're planning to do is to challenge outdated views on aging. Of course, everybody thinks that once you hit 40, your life is supposed to go downhill. Not everyone, but a good majority of people. We're going to talk about menopause in various aspects, and we're going to tackle the one about work first, because I know a lot of you who tune in are still working a 9 to 5 and still trying to figure out, how do I navigate this process in this time in my life at work. So we'll talk a lot about menopause, and also there'll be some inspiring stories of bold decisions that have been made by some of the guests. And that's just to name a few, but there are so many different things that we're going to focus on this season, and I just cannot wait. And we will also throw in a few bonus episodes here and there, so you'll hear me having conversations with women who have, again, made some bold moves in their lives. And these will be some bonus episodes, and also a couple of fun episodes too. But overall, my hope is that you're able to learn how to embrace new opportunities and promote your health and well-being during this time, and not look at it as a time of, my life is going downhill, but look at it as this is like a new opportunity. This is something I've never experienced before. And how do I make the best out of this part of my life? We'll be back right after this. Hey there, midlife navigators. Are you ready to turn heads and steal the spotlight? Picture this. You're strutting down the street and heads are turning left and right. Why? Because you're rocking those stunning glasses from Zilul. Zilul isn't just about eyewear, it's about making a statement. Whether you're into bold frames that scream confidence or sleek styles that exude elegance, Zilul has got you covered. And here's the best part. Not only will you look amazing, but you'll also feel amazing knowing you got the best deal possible. Just use code NAVIGATE at checkout for an exclusive 15% off your order. So why settle for boring glasses when you can dazzle with Zilul? Elevate your style, boost your confidence, and let your glasses do the talking. Head over to Zilul, that's ZEELOOL.com, and unleash your inner fashionista today. And also, don't forget to use code NAVIGATE, that is NAVIGATE, at checkout for your exclusive 15% off. Happy shopping, navigators. So for those of you who tune in often, you hear me say, or if you really heard my journey, I would say, into podcasting and getting started here, you've heard me say a lot that the podcast journey has not been easy, but I always share that it has been rewarding. I've really, again, enjoyed being blessed with the opportunity to meet so many wonderful women who have been a guest on the show. Most of you who have sent emails and DMs on social media, sharing your personal stories and your excitement about having this space to learn and grow, because we did not have these spaces years ago. When I entered my 40s, we didn't have these spaces. And it hasn't been until recently that we're starting to see more conversations about this. And what I like to say about this community is that it is a space for us to learn, grow, and support one another with certain topics and having conversations that our moms and our grandmothers and our aunts did not have with us. Did not hear, how do you navigate this time in my life? We may have seen our mom or grandmother or whoever pull out the fan and they're always hot, or they kept the house extremely cold. I remember having a friend growing up and her mother kept the house extremely cold all day long. And I was like, oh my God, it feels like an icebox. Now that I am in this point in my life where I also experience, the hot flashes and night sweats, I myself keep my house like an icebox, not all throughout the day, but especially at night. I keep it like an icebox, and I never used to do that before. But I want us to be able to have these safe spaces to have these conversations and to learn and to grow and to just know that this is not the end. There is help out there. There is support out there. You are not alone on this journey. And although I say that this hasn't been an easy journey for me in terms of podcasting, I have learned so many lessons along the way. And again, I'm just so grateful to be able to have the opportunity to be here now to share those with you and to also share every episode with you that I've shared so far. So today, I want to take some time to share for those or anyone listening who is interested in starting a podcast and wanting to know what all goes into it. I want to share with you some of the mistakes that I made and how you can do those things differently. While I will not go into every single thing, I will hit on 3 major points that really stood out to me, that really come to mind for me the most. And there are things that I'm always just taking notes on. I take notes on several things, but these have been just really top of mind to me, especially when it came to areas where I really need to focus on improving and growing so that I can get better in the podcasting field. So first, we'll dive right on in. First is the time commitment. We, of course, as I go through these, I know oftentimes we hear people share, this is how you get started and those type of things. And I would love to do an episode like that, and I can. And so you might hear a little bit about that here, but I want to really focus on like the mistakes I made, the things I had to learn from. And this first one is time commitment. So initially, when I started the podcast, you guys have heard me share this before, I jumped all in. I did do research here and there to learn about, the best platforms to record on and editing software to use and the best microphones to use. But what I wasn't prepared for was how time consuming hosting a podcast can be. Mistake number one. Mistake number one. Do not start a podcast if you do not have the time to commit to it. That is the number one thing that I can tell you, because it is definitely time consuming. And if you don't have the funds to kind of delegate tasks and pay other people to do it, you're going to find yourself doing every single part of that podcast, every single step that it takes to get things going and to get that episode pushed out. You're going to find yourself doing every last step to get to that rollout. But as I mentioned, I initially jumped in and was not aware that it would take, again, so much time to create episodes, record and edit. And one thing about me, and for many of you who do know me, I'm not much of a talker. So this was tough for me. Now, granted, let me take that back a little bit. Depending on the subject matter, I can talk and have really good dialogue. But for the most part, I'm a pretty balanced person. I like to call myself an ambivert. I'm not too much of an introvert, not too much of an extrovert. I'm right there kind of in the middle. But a lot of times I can find myself being a little bit more on like the quieter side. But anyway, to add like that time in between managing like a full-time job, I still work a 9 to 5. So imagine you still working your full-time job and you're podcasting on the side. It can be a lot of work. It really can. And what I had to do was learn to get creative. And part of that was really sitting down and deciding what would be the best course of action for me to take that would help keep the listeners tuning in and would not cause more stress on me than I had already put on myself. Again, working a 9 to 5 and doing podcasting on the side. So for me, I decided to release episodes on a bi-weekly cadence, because that's what worked for me. And it gave me time to work on what's next in between weeks. So that can be content that I'm working on, social media posts, and making sure that I'm pushing the current episode out over that 2-week period before the next one rolls out. It gave me time to record and, do all of the things that it took to get the episode out to the listeners. While most podcasters do batch recording, where they record maybe everything up front and then release them out on whatever cadence they decide, that wasn't the case for me. And guess what? That's okay. That's okay if that is a step or a direction you want to take, which is batch recording. But it wasn't what worked for me at the time. And it was also something that I had to learn along the way, because initially when I started, I hadn't heard of batch recording. So for season 1 and 2, again, you saw me, or you did see me, because if you're on YouTube, I'm on YouTube. But you either saw it on YouTube or you got the episodes on a bi-weekly cadence. And with this current season, however, I can say I was able to create a recording plan that would allow me to do most of the work of, editing show notes and all of those things on the front end, and also schedule posts in advance. And that has been a lifesaver for me. So for season 3, I did a lot of my recording with my guests. I did a lot of those things in advance. And I will say, it's been helpful. So I do understand how batch recording helps some people. But again, for me, sometimes that introvert side kind of leans in a little bit more where it takes over. And you have to recharge. So for some people, batch recording can look like doing back to back episodes in a day. Some it can be in a week. But for me, that that just did not work because I need a break. Like I have to take a moment to recharge and reset and then get ready for the next thing. And so while I did do some concept of batch recording, it wasn't in the ways that I just mentioned. But the plan that I did decide for season 3, again, for me, it has been a lifesaver. And I will say this, and I'll talk about this a bit, and that is the part of editing. Editing takes a good little minute to do. And while, I have an understanding of how to do this part, and it does, for the most part, it can take up a good portion of the work that you have to do behind the scenes if you're going to do this yourself. But what I found myself doing was saying, hey, you know what? This is one of those tasks that maybe you can delegate to someone else to do. So I took the opportunity and did some research on Fiverr. Fiverr is a lifesaver. I went to Fiverr. I found someone there. I created a relationship with them, and I allowed them to do all of the editing for the episodes that I have with my guests, except for mine. Usually my solo episodes, as you're hearing now, they're not really edited. They're just kind of that raw content, which I probably should edit, and maybe I'll work on that. But that's just something that I don't do at this time. And I've also heard really good feedback from some of the listeners that they really enjoy hearing the solo episodes just kind of in raw form, because guess what? You hear me, you can hear my mess ups, you can hear my mistakes. You don't hear all of the edited out things on like you would in an episode with a guest. So if the plan is for you to start a podcast, I say go for it. I'll never tell you not to jump all in and get started. Because here's my thing and my belief. If it's something that you really want to do, go for it. However, I will say make sure that you do have the time to commit to it. And if you can hire someone that can take on those important parts, like, for example, I mentioned editing, as in my case, so that you can focus on, other things, then do that. And when I mean other things, I mean this next part, which is number 2, the second thing that I learned, which is networking. And so, with networking, it can be, I enjoy networking. I've always have, as someone who has been in my career for over 20 years. Oh my God, almost 25. I think 25 years or almost 25 years at this point. I have to ask one of my friends because we started at the same time. But networking has always been one of those things that I've highly encouraged, and I know how to do pretty well. And so, depending on the type of podcast you plan to start, whether you plan to do a solo with a partner or solo with guests, that will determine how much networking you really need to do. Because I do a combo of solo and guest episodes, I have to take time to connect with other people. And so in this case, I look for women, since women are my audience of people who tune into the show. And that is what the podcast was created for, was for women navigating midlife. And so I do spend a good deal of time connecting with other women, but I also have a strategy. I don't just see someone online and say, oh, let me just reach out to them. I have a strategy. And so part of my strategy is that I pay close attention to someone I like to have come on the show and be a guest. I watch them on social media. I watch, whenever they're coming on my timeline, I'm really watching. If they have something live, I'm watching, I'm paying attention to what they're talking about. And the work that they're doing, to see if they would really be a good fit for my audience of people. One of the mistakes that I made is that in the beginning, this is not something that I was doing. I didn't do this with every guest. I was just asking people I knew to come on the show, because I know a lot of people, but all of those people don't fit my show, right? And I was reaching out to people to come on and be guests. And there were actually even moments where I scrambled to find guests, and I just had to reach out to like friends or again someone I knew who was doing something amazing in their business or their personal life to come on the show. And although they did come and talk about topics that related to women in midlife, there were a couple of episodes that I've done that they did not resonate so well, and again, while I appreciate each of them for coming on, I did have to learn through this process what my listeners really wanted to hear based on how well the episodes did. And I will highly encourage you to pay attention to analytics. I look at my analytics several times a day. I probably shouldn't do that because that might sound a little obsessive. But I look at the analytics several times a day, especially when an episode releases. I'm wanting to see how well this episode is really resonating with the audience. And guess what? I will say this too. Different platforms, they do differently on different platforms. So for example, there might be an episode that does well on YouTube, really well on YouTube, but on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, it won't do as well. It doesn't get as many listeners or downloads, but it will get a lot of listeners or views on YouTube. So, and I'm saying all of this because it's very important to understand your audience and network with people who can be on your show. And some of the best ways to network that I found to be helpful again is one, watching those people, really paying attention to people that you really want to have on your show and just watching how they move, how they do things. And if their messages and for me, it's their journey, or whatever it is that resonates with my audience, if that will fit and if it will do well on the show. So that's something that I have really learned to pay close attention to. And again, one of the ways that you can do this, or a few ways that you can do this with networking, especially in this age of social media, is one, you can send a DM on social media. You can send an email. You can post in podcast channels. There are so many podcast channels out here. Again, or if you know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, you can go that route too. I've had to do that before, so you can go that route too. But the key is, again, to network, get yourself out there, so that you can meet new people and bring them on the show. And then hopefully it will really resonate with your audience. But it's very important to know what your audience needs so that you are not just, again, like I was in season 1 and part of season 2, just scrambling for guests. As I mentioned earlier, again, I pay close attention to those who I would like to come on the show. And I do that for a while. And then again, eventually I reach out. Another thing that I started to do was, for this season, to really help me out, was I started to conduct 15-minute pre-interviews. So although I reached out and I networked with all these people, especially when I put it out on social media and reached out to people on social media, if I did not know those people specifically, or I was not really paying close attention to them, those are the ones that I really had those 15-minute pre-interviews with. And guess what? I will be honest with you. The show has been doing so well that now I'm having people reach out to be on the show. And so this is another way for me to get a chance to know them. And if they're a good fit as well, is to have them do this 15-minute pre-interview to ensure that they are going to be a good fit for this audience of listeners. And I give, I give shout outs to Morgan Franklin. Morgan Franklin gave this tip on one of her episodes, and she also shared the questions to use. And it has been very, very helpful for me as I'm moving into this new season. So shout out to Morgan Franklin. Listen, listen, I don't know Morgan personally, but we are connected on social media and in a couple of Facebook groups. And I will say, I just love the work that she's doing. So I just want to give her a shout out. And then, of course, once I make the decision to bring that guest on, and after doing that pre-interview, I get them scheduled. And so that leads me to the next point. This is the next thing that I had to learn, which is systems. You have to run, I don't care what business you have. So let me pause and go this route for a minute. It doesn't matter what business you have, what type of business you have to have the right type of systems and processes in place for your business to run efficiently. And again, for me, I mentioned this, I work a 9 to 5. I can't be over here working my 9 to 5 and doing this at the same time. So I have to have the right systems and processes in place so the business can run while I'm working. Okay. So having the right systems in place, it's going to be so helpful for you. With a lot of systems, you can automate things and that is what genuinely will help your business to really run successfully. Initially, when I started, I didn't have these things set up. And that's crazy because I've done businesses before in the past and I had systems and everything set up. But again, I'm new to podcasting. I'm learning everything. And so that was a mistake that I made, was not having the right systems in place. But guess what? Eventually I got it together. I got it together now. And that's something that I don't have to worry about going forward. So one place that I started, again, you heard me talk about the pre-interview and the second tip that I shared. And part of that pre-interview is going through a scheduling system. And I set this scheduling system up. You can set it up one time and have it automated a certain way. And so what I did was I have the questions for my guests after they schedule their interview. I have this set up where the questions will go out automatically to the guests. And then, of course, they get these automatic calendar reminders that are added to their calendar. It's added to my calendar, and it also sends out these reminders to the guests as the date approaches for recording. Again, you just have to set this up one time, and you're good to go. And also, by the way, I will share this too. This is also something that I have on my website as well. So if someone is interested in being a guest, it's automated the same way for the pre-interview. And all I have to do is focus on the outline of the show notes, and, other little important pieces that I needed because I already have somebody doing the editing. So I take care of the middle stuff. And I'm also not sure if I mentioned this in talking about it earlier, like scheduling and everything, but I use Calendly and I use Google Docs and to set this up, and they work pretty well together. Calendly syncs with Google Docs, and so you can set that up and just have those things automated to go out. But once the guests are scheduled, again, the Google Doc goes out to them. They can complete the next steps. And like I said, it helps me based off what they share about themselves. That kind of helps me develop the questions and the show notes and everything that I need to have a successful recording with my guests. The fourth thing that I learned, and this will be the last one that I'll share with you, but be committed to learning. One thing that I really give myself credit for is I love to learn. And I know that a lot of you listening, you love to learn too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. I love to learn. And a lot of my audience, they love to learn. And while I'm still learning the ins and outs of podcasting, I do try to find some time during the week to commit to learning. And again, I mentioned Morgan Franklin earlier. Right now, she is like my favorite teacher slash podcast host. And she also has she has a podcast, and her podcast is called Podcast for Profits. And so every week, every week, I tune in and I listen to her show because she drops gem after gem after gem, which helps me to level up my game as a podcaster and to really treat this like a business and not like a hobby. And sometimes that's a mistake that we make. We have these businesses and we treat it more so like a hobby than we do a business. And maybe I need to do an episode on that and bring on someone who can really speak to that for those of you who are midlife and entrepreneurs. We can have that conversation. Let me know if you want to hear that. Shoot me a message, drop me a comment wherever you are listening, and just let me know if that's something that you're interested in, and I can make that happen. But because here's the thing, if you are doing this as a hobby, that's totally okay. I'm not gonna knock that because some people they do podcasting as a hobby, and that's cool. That's fine. And I'm not knocking that. But for me, I have to treat this like a business. And also running a podcast is not cheap. It is not cheap at all. It can be expensive depending on which symptoms and not symptoms, which systems, I'm sorry, and software that you use. And so it can be expensive. While there are some freebies out there, some of the best systems and software is going to cost you some money to use. And another way that I am also learning is by listening to other podcasters. So not only do I tune in every week to Podcast for Profits, and I'm listening to all these gems that help me grow and develop as a podcaster, I'm also tuning into other podcasters as well who have been doing this for a while. So they are like the OGs in my mind of podcasting. And so I listen and I learn from them and I see what they're doing. And then I also attend trainings. And so there are a lot of trainings out there that are for podcasting. You also have YouTube University. So shout out to YouTube University. But yes, I listen to, attend a lot of trainings on podcasting, business. And then, of course, I try to find something based off what I need to invest in myself at least 1 to 2 times a year, depending on if my budget allows. My ultimate goal is to continue to get better at this. And if you do plan to start a podcast, my hope is that you take the time to commit to learning so you can not only be better for yourself, but you can also be better for your audience as well. Because as I grow and I develop, I'm able to bring more content to you guys, better content, to you all. And I'm as I elevate and I grow and I evolve, I feel like I can also do the same or help you do the same as well. And so I really wanted to share those with you. And again, while there are many, many lessons learned on this journey, because I've learned quite a few, I just really wanted to share what stood out to me the most right now, because these things really felt important. And a lot of it just really was top of mind for me. And I was just like, what are the things that I can do better with? What are the things I can do better with? What do I need to fix on this end? How can I do things differently? And my goal is every season to get better, really every week. That's really my goal. And I know that's kind of like a high goal for some of you might say, oh, that's really high, but that's my goal. And so sometimes you might see me switching up some things. You might one day tune in and say, oh, the intro of the episode changed, but hey, I might do that, It's about growth and evolving. But I also want to make sure that as I grow and evolve, I want you guys to grow and evolve, and I want to make sure that these episodes are fitting for you, because we're learning this together. We're learning this together. We're on this journey together. And again, you're not by yourself. So hopefully in the future, I can share a part 2 about the lessons that I've learned on this journey. For those of you who are interested in starting a podcast, and of course, if you are interested in that, you can leave me a comment somewhere. You can also send me an email if you're interested in, like, hey, do a part 2 and go more in depth in some other areas or some things that you want to know about podcasting. Feel free to shoot me an email at hello, HELLO, at navigatinglifeafter40, and that is 40.com. And I'll be more than happy to do another episode or answer any questions that you may have. I really hope you learned something today and that this episode was helpful for you. I cannot wait to share more episodes with you all this season, and there will be even more. As I mentioned earlier, there will be tons of bonus episodes this season, so I cannot wait to share those with you as well. I cannot wait to just kind of help you guys navigate this life so well and with ease and with grace. I'm just excited. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for me. I'm excited for this journey that we're going on together. And so, as always, until next time, I will see you guys on the flip side. Have a great rest of your day. That's a wrap for this episode of Navigating Life After 40. I hope you enjoyed this conversation just as much as I did. If you love what you're hearing, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling generous, leave me a review on your favorite podcast platform. This helps me to reach more amazing women like yourself who are trying to navigate this amazing life. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep living your best life.